Now, studies show that globally close to 1,500 journalists have been killed for reporting the news and bringing information to the public. And killers, we hear in 9 out of 10 cases go unpunished. Well, this impunity emboldens the perpetrators of the crimes and discourages journalists and indeed the society at large. Joining me in the studio now to talk more on impunity for crimes against journalists is Dr. Umar Jibril Gwandu. He is the Special Assistant to the Attorney General of the Federation on Media. Thank you very much, Mr. Gwandu, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Ruth.
All right, now, when we say impunity, you know, that when we use the term impunity for crimes against journalists, what are we really talking about?
Yeah, it's important to make some clerical or conceptual clarification as far as this issue is concerned. When we talk about impunity, we're talking about exemption from punishment or freedom not to suffer from any consequences of an action. So if someone does an act which is contrary to the provisions of the law, that person should not go free. Because if you allow such persons to go free, it will demoralize the other members who, the punishment is supposed to serve as deterrence to others. Yes. And when you allow this to continue, it will demoralize the journalists themselves, because they will live in a fear that they cannot continue to function effectively in as much as the perpetrators of crime against them are left to go scot-free or unpunished. And it also demoralized and also demonized the entire nation, as this is a country where everything is accepted. At the same time, you know, as important as journalism is, there is need for serene and luminous atmosphere for the practice. Okay, and when you instill this fear in journalists, or in journalists, you will find the practice will not go, and there will be a lot of challenges in the practice.
And you agree with me, Mr. Gwandu, that impunity breeds impunity, and that will lead, you know, that feeds into a vicious cycle. What would you say is responsible for this? Is it that, you know, the law is not catching up with these perpetrators?
One of the principal pillars upon which this government is built upon is also the issue of the rule of law and the entrenchment of democratic ideals, where impunity will no longer be accepted. We want the idea, the concept, the application and implication of this impunity be completely obliterated and eradicated from the Nigerian system. And some of the challenges that cause is the absence sometimes of legal framework, or sometimes the political will. Sometimes you find a lot of crises across the globe that may aggravate the issue of impunity. Sometimes because of lack of professional training, journalists may endanger themselves in the way they practice. And there is also issue of safety training, or training of peace journalism, an issue of safety practice. So journalists should be trained on this issue of what is going to be safe for them, how to practice, and people should also be aware.
When you say safe for them, what are you trying to say?
That people should be made to know that whenever something is done against an inhabitant of a country, a citizen or a journalist for that matter, there is naturally going to be consequences. And the government will not fold its arms to allow people to go and commit all sorts of crimes against even citizens of the country, and also journalists included.
Okay, and we've seen non-fatal attacks on journalists. We have seen harassment, intimidation, arbitrary detention, you name it. Now, how can the journalists be protected, knowing fully well that we, I'm also a journalist, are essential workers, you know?
Yeah, journalists can be protected, as I said, through establishment of legal framework.
We have that already.
Then the issue of training is also important. And the political will, the government is determined to ensure that all perpetrators of crime against journalists are brought to book. And that's so that punishment should serve as deterrent to others. And this is part of the issues, I think, that will be done in order to ensure that there is no longer any problem affecting journalists. I think the National Union of Journalists and only other stakeholders may have to sit down, brainstorm, and bring out ideas on which these things will be brought to an end completely.
But Mr. Gwandu, how can you confidently tell us right now that perpetrators, people who commit these crimes, against journalists are being convicted? How many of them? Because reports shows that 1 in 10 cases.
But this is, as you are aware, that report that you have been quoting is the US-based Committee to Protect Journalists report.
Yes.
This Committee to Protect Journalists is an international organization that's taking account of all the infractions and crimes committed against journalists. And they are taking account of all these things globally, not in Nigerian context alone. So, and the recent report they have released, they say that Nigeria is the only country that came off the index from 2019.
Yes.
This is a landmark achievement and a very important record we have achieved as a country, that Nigeria is no longer among the countries where journalists or crime against journalists go with impunity. We have been in the list for a number of years, but recently, based on the report that has been released in 2020, that's that last Wednesday, October 28th, says that Nigeria is not among the countries where journalists suffer from crime and impunity. And in this case, we are saying this success recorded cannot be unattributed to certain reforms in the Nigerian legal system and justice sector reforms, including the implementation of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015, issues of this prison decongestion, issues of Freedom of Information Act, the implementation of this, the Freedom of Information Act, the determination of the government to ensure the rule of law and the relative peace we have enjoyed in the country, unlike the past, as well as this issue of speedy dispensation of justice and access to justice, which the government is seriously working on. And if these things are to be maintained, Nigeria will not feature again in the list of countries where journalists or crimes are committed against journalists, and these perpetrators of the crime go unpunished.
Well, it's a good thing journalists are beginning to speak out, but we must continue to protect their rights and protect the truth.
The government is committed to that.
All right. Thank you very much. Dr. Umar Jibril Gwandu. He is the Special Assistant to the Attorney General of the Federation. All right.